Stop scrolling. World War III has already started. Not in the future. Not coming soon. It has already started. And you have been watching it happen every single day without recognizing it for what it is. My name is Professor Jiang. I have spent 32 years studying the patterns of war. Not the battles. Not the bombs. The patterns. The invisible movements that come before the fire. The quiet decisions made in closed rooms that ordinary people never hear about until it is far too late to do anything about them. And I am telling you today, with complete confidence and not a single doubt in my mind, that the war has already begun. Not with guns. Not yet. But with something far more powerful and far more difficult to defend against. And in this video, I am going to show you exactly what I mean. I am going to show you the evidence that is hiding in plain sight. I am going to connect dots that the media is not connecting. And I am going to give you a prediction for what comes next, based on 32 years of studying exactly how these things unfold. Do not leave this video. Every section builds on the last. And the prediction I am saving for the final part of this video is the one I have been most afraid to say out loud. Stay with me. Before I go deeper, I want to reveal my secret. People keep asking me, "Sir, how are you so active at 63? But a few years ago, I was in constant pain. Legs, body, no sleep, no focus. I had to stop my research and predictions. I tried everything. I spent thousands of dollars. Nothing worked. Then I started using advanced amino formula. Within just 2 weeks, I felt stronger, more active. My pain reduced. I felt younger again. It is made in the USA with natural ingredients. Do not worry. I have added the buy link in the description and pinned comment. It comes with a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there is zero risk. If you are struggling with leg pain, body pain, brain fog, or low energy, I recommend you try it for 2 weeks. Your pain will reduce, your energy will come back, and your mind will feel clear again. This is my guarantee. Now, let us get back to what matters. Let me tell you how every major war in modern history actually begins. People imagine that wars start with a declaration, a speech, a missile launch, a moment that everyone sees and recognizes as the beginning. That is not how wars start. Every major war in the last 200 years began the same way. First, economic pressure. One nation or a group of nations begins squeezing another economically. Trade restrictions, sanctions, currency manipulation. The goal is to weaken the target without firing a single shot. Second, information warfare. The public narrative is shaped. The enemy is dehumanized or demonized in media. People are prepared, psychologically, to accept conflict as necessary, inevitable, even righteous. Third, proxy conflicts. The major powers begin fighting each other through smaller nations. They supply weapons. They send advisors. They fund factions. They test their weapon systems and their strategies using other people's soldiers and other people's cities. And then, when the economic pressure has weakened the target sufficiently, when the population has been sufficiently convinced, when enough proxy conflicts have tested the battlefield strategies, the direct confrontation begins. Look at that sequence. Now look at the world around you. Tell me you do not see it. Because I see it everywhere I look. I see it in the economic sanctions that are being applied and countered across 3 different continents simultaneously. I see it in the information warfare happening on every social media platform, every news channel, every government statement from every major power. I see it in the proxy conflicts that are currently active in multiple regions where the weapons being used are being supplied by the very nations that publicly claim to want peace. And I see it in the military buildups. The largest peacetime military expansions in a generation happening simultaneously in China, Russia, the United States, and across the European continent. None of these things are happening in isolation. They are happening together at the same time, in the same sequence that has preceded every major conflict I have studied. This is not coincidence. History does not produce coincidences at this scale. Let me now talk about something that most analysts are completely missing. The new battlefield. When I say World War III has already begun, I am not speaking metaphorically. I am describing a war being fought on 5 simultaneous fronts that did not exist in any previous world war. The first front is the economic front. Right now, the global financial system is being weaponized in ways that go far beyond traditional sanctions. Nations are being deliberately excluded from international payment systems. Currency reserves are being frozen or seized. Supply chains are being deliberately disrupted to cause economic pain in targeted nations. This is economic warfare. It is active. It is escalating. And it is causing enormous suffering in countries that most people in the West cannot find on a map. The second front is the cyber front. I have spoken to researchers who have studied classified incident reports. The scale of ongoing cyber warfare between major nations is extraordinary. Power grids are being probed. Financial systems are being tested for vulnerabilities. Communications infrastructure is being mapped and pre-positioned for disruption at the moment of conflict. These are not hypothetical risks. These attacks are happening continuously right now at a level that has never been seen before. The third front is the space front. I will come back to this in more detail because it deserves its own section. But briefly, the race to establish military dominance in space has become the most strategically important competition in human history. Whichever nation controls the satellites controls the communications, the navigation, the targeting systems, the surveillance, everything that a modern military depends on. The fourth front is the biological front. I choose my words carefully here because this is a sensitive area, but the research on biological agent development, research that has been partially declassified and partially leaked, shows that multiple major nations are investing heavily in agents that can be deployed covertly, that target specific biological vulnerabilities, and that can cause mass harm without any traditional military signature. The fifth front is the psychological front. The battle for the beliefs and fears of ordinary citizens, the manipulation of what people think is true, the engineering of consent for conflict before the conflict begins. These 5 fronts are all active simultaneously. That is the war I am describing. And it is not coming. It is here. Now I need to talk about what comes next, because understanding where we are in this sequence is the most important thing. Based on my 32 years of studying these patterns, we are currently in what I call the late pressure phase. The economic warfare has been active for years. The information warfare is at maximum intensity. The proxy conflicts are multiplying. The military buildups are accelerating. In every historical precedent I have studied, the late pressure phase is followed by what I call the ignition event. An ignition event is not the beginning of a war. It is the moment that provides political cover for the open military phase to begin. In World War I, the ignition event was the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. In World War II, the ignition event in the Pacific was Pearl Harbor. I am not predicting a specific ignition event, but I am telling you, based on everything I have studied, that we are in the period when an ignition event becomes possible, then likely, then inevitable, if the current trajectory continues. And the current trajectory is continuing. I want to now talk about what this means for ordinary families. Because the analysis of geopolitical patterns only matters if it translates into something real and actionable for real people. The first thing that ordinary families need to understand is that the early phases of modern warfare affect civilians first, not last. Economic warfare causes inflation, shortages, and financial disruption for ordinary people long before any military engagement begins. We are seeing this now. Cyber warfare, when it escalates, targets civilian infrastructure, power grids, water treatment systems, hospital networks, banking systems. The first casualties of modern war are not soldiers on a battlefield. They are ordinary people who suddenly find that their electricity does not work, their bank accounts are inaccessible, or their medications are unavailable because the supply chain has been deliberately disrupted. Understanding this changes what it means to be prepared. You cannot prepare for modern warfare by stockpiling weapons. You prepare by understanding that the first attacks will come to your daily infrastructure, your energy supply, your food supply, your health, your financial stability. And protecting yourself begins long before any bombs fall. The second thing families need to understand is that information, trustworthy information from sources that are not controlled by any of the warring parties, becomes the most valuable resource in a conflict. When information warfare is at maximum intensity, which it is right now, almost everything you read or watch is shaped by someone with an agenda. The truth is always somewhere in the middle between the competing narratives, and finding it requires effort. I have spent 32 years developing the ability to read through competing narratives and find the underlying reality. And the underlying reality right now is unambiguous. The world is moving toward a direct confrontation between major powers. The pace of that movement is accelerating, and the window for preventing it is narrowing. I am not saying this to generate fear. I am saying it because understanding reality, even a difficult reality, is always better than being surprised by it. Let me now share my 3 most specific predictions for how the current situation develops over the next 5 years. My first prediction is that within 2 years, we will see at least one major cyber attack on civilian infrastructure in a developed nation that causes widespread disruption lasting days or weeks. This will be framed as an isolated criminal incident. It will not be. My second prediction is that within 3 years, the proxy conflict situation in at least one major region will escalate to a point where a major power becomes directly militarily involved in a way that cannot be disguised as support or advisement. This will be the moment that most historians will later identify as the true beginning of direct confrontation. My third prediction, and this is the one I find most concerning, is that within 5 years, we will see the first military conflict in space. Not a large-scale battle, but a deliberate act of aggression against a satellite or space asset that constitutes a military attack in space. This will change the legal, political, and strategic landscape of every conflict on Earth. I want to be honest about the uncertainty in these predictions. I do not have a crystal ball. I have 32 years of pattern recognition and access to a very wide range of research, analysis, and information. My predictions could be wrong. I sincerely hope they are wrong, but they are not guesses. They are the conclusions of careful, systematic analysis of the most reliable information I have access to. And the pattern is clear, clearer than I have seen it at any point in my career, which is why I feel an obligation to share this with you, even knowing that many people will dismiss it, as they always dismiss warnings until the warnings become reality. Let me talk now about something personal. I was born into a world that had just lived through a world war. My family carried those scars. The stories I heard as a child of what ordinary people experience in large-scale conflict shaped my entire life and my entire career. And I look at the world today and I see, with a clarity that frightens even me, the same patterns repeating. Not exactly. History never repeats exactly, but the shape of it, the sequence, the way the pressure builds, the way the ordinary world continues to function even as the foundation is cracking underneath it. It is the same shape, and I will not be silent about it. Because the greatest disservice I could do to the people who trust my analysis is to soften the conclusion to make it more comfortable. The world is at war. The visible phase has not yet arrived, but everything that precedes the visible phase is actively underway. Your awareness of that is the beginning of your preparation for it. And preparation, not panic, is the appropriate response to this information. I want to end this video the way I end every important conversation, with the truth and with hope. The truth is this: what I have described today is real. The patterns are real. The trajectory is real. The danger is real. But here is what is also real. Human beings have survived every war in history, including the worst ones. The people who survive are not always the strongest. They are not always the wealthiest. They are not always the most powerful. The people who survive are the ones who are awake, the ones who see what is coming, the ones who act on that awareness before events force their hand. You are watching this video. You are listening to this information. You are choosing to be awake. That is already an advantage that most people do not have. Now do something with that advantage. Share this video, not for me, for the people in your life who are still asleep, who still believe that the world is stable, who still trust that the institutions that are supposed to protect them are focused on doing that. Share this video with them, because waking up together is always safer than waking up alone. And please, if this video gave you information that you found valuable, that you did not have before, leave a comment. Tell me what you think. Tell me what part of this you want me to go deeper on, because I have more to say. On the space war, on the bioweapons programs, on the economic warfare mechanics, on how to protect your family specifically. And I will say all of it, as long as you are here listening. I am Professor Jiang. Stay awake, stay prepared, and I will see you in the next video.